She was just here. I'll just ask her.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I just wanted to. I thought since ma'am is speaking, I wanted to unmute myself and listen.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
How are you, Shita?
Fine, ma'am. How are you, ma'am?
All good. All good. Thank you. So, can we start?
Yeah, let us.
For everyone watching, I'd like to welcome everyone to this event that's being held on Women's Day by the Kerala State Unit of the Indian Law Institute and in conjunction with the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers. As women who face the bias and discrimination on just solely on the basis of gender, celebrating just this one day, which is the International Women's Day, might seem a little ironic, but it's also the one day that we have to truly raise our voices, to harness the power in our voices, and to talk about issues that affect us on a daily basis and which might lead to positive impact. It's with this in mind that this endeavor has been taken up, where we have Justice Kohli of the Telangana High Court giving us our address for today, which will thereafter be followed by a panel discussion having Justice Kohli, Justice Anu Shivraman of the Kerala High Court, and Advocate Geeta Ramaseshan of the Madras High Court. I now invite Mrs. S.K. Devi, the President of the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers, to deliver the introductory address.
Honorable Chief Justice of Telangana High Court, Kumari Hima Kohli, Honorable Chief Justice of High Court of Kerala, Sri S. Manikumar, Honorable Justice Anu Shivaraman, Advocate Sri Geeta Ramaseshan, Honorable Sitting and former judges of the Kerala High Court, Advocate General Sri C.P. Sudhakara Prasad, other legal luminaries, and all other belonging to the legal fraternity. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to all of you. March 8th of the year is being globally observed as International Women's Day. The movement of liberation of women started in the beginning of the year 1900 AD. A march by more than 15,000 women through the New York City demanding shorter hours of work, better pay, and voting right is marked as a big movement. Thereafter, in different parts of the world, there were agitations and declaration of International Women's Day on different dates. In 1975, UN declared International Women's Day, and in 1977, the UN and the member states proclaimed the 8th March of every year would be official day for women's rights and peace. Thereafter, globally, 8th March is being observed as International Women's Day. The UN, for the first time, presented a theme for the day in 1996. The theme was celebrating the past, planning for the future. The theme of 2021 is choose to change. Choosing to change all out gender bias and inequality. On comparison of a number of states globally, India is in a better position. It seems to me that the Kerala gender disparity is less, or other words, women is more recognized. Today's function is the best example for it. It is organized jointly by Indian Law Institute, Kerala Unit, and Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers. The President of Indian Lawyers Institute, Kerala Unit is the Chief Justice of Kerala, Honorable Justice S. Manikumar. The Honorable President and the Executive Committee of Indian Law Institute was unanimous in handing over the matter of Women's Day celebration to this year to an entire women team. At the same time, all the background works of the celebration is done by Indian Law Institute. On behalf of the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers and my own behalf, I express a special thanks to Indian Law Institute, Kerala Unit. Today's Women's Day message on topic Women in Legal Profession and Crimes. The challenges is led by Chief Justice Kumari Hima Kohli, Madam. Madam will also lead the discussion on the above said topics along with Honorable Justice Anu Shivaraman and Advocate Geeta Ramaseshan. Justice Hima Kohli is the first women Chief Justice of Telangana High Court. She was the judge of Delhi High Court from 2006 to January 2021 and sworn as the Chief Justice of Telangana High Court in January 2021. Her rise to this position had a humble beginning of an outsider without a legal background. During the farewell speech in the Delhi High Court, Kumari Justice Kohli said the following words, I quote, the dedication, discipline, constant updates of law, sincere advice to clients, and carrying the trust of court are the hallmarks of good lawyer, whether male or female. It is just that the notch is a bit higher for women lawyers, unquote. The above words is a testimony for the achievements of the madam. On behalf of the organizations, I extend a warm welcome to you, madam. Justice Anu Shivaraman for the lawyers now practicing in the High Court. No need to any introduction. Enrolled as an advocate in 1991, madam was standing counsel for the Cochin Corporation, government pleader as well as a special government pleader. Appointed as an additional judge of Kerala High Court in April 2015, was made an permanent judge in April 2017. Madam's father, the late Justice V. Shiraman, was one of the best judges of the Kerala High Court. As soon as the daughter Anu started practicing in Kerala High Court, Justice Shivaraman Nair requested a transfer and got transferred. Justice Anu Shivaraman is a dedicated and sincere and possesses more qualities than those her father. She is very friendly to Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers, and we are proud of you, Justice Anu Shivaraman. A warm and sweet welcome to you, madam, to this function. Advocate Geeta Ramaseshan has been practicing since 1982 in Chennai in the area of criminal law and family law. She is a renowned advocate known for her work in upholding the rights of women and notable commentator on gender issues. She is an apt person for the panel discussion. On behalf of the organizers, I extended a warm welcome to you, madam. The moderator of the panel discussion, Advocate Nimi Susan Thomas, Advocate S. Krishna, who is delivering the concluding remarks of the day, I extend a hearty welcome. Once again, I welcome all of the honorable judges and the delegate dignitaries to the function. The introductory address of mine shall not be complete without memorizing our beloved late Justice K.K. Usha, our Usha Chechi, one of the founders of our federation. He was the role model for all of us. In 1975, when I started practice as a lawyer, only 10 or 12 women lawyers were in the High Court. Justice Usha was there extending help to all women lawyers. She is the first lady advocate elevated to the bench, and she is the first women Chief Justice of Kerala High Court. The panel discussion of the International Women's Day 2020 was led by Justice K.K. Usha. Today she is not with us. For the entire women lawyers of Kerala, pranaman to our Usha Chechi. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much for your inaugural address, Devi ma'am. Now it would be time for us to invite Justice Hima Kohli to deliver the Women's Day message, which will be on women in the legal profession, its triumphs and challenges. Justice Hima Kohli is currently the Chief Justice of the Telangana High Court. Earlier, she was a judge in the Delhi High Court, where she was greatly involved in multiple cases and where she helped in multiple cases involving gender discrimination. There were cases of awarding maternity leave to contractual employees, and specifically during the pandemic of ensuring rights to pregnant women, which are all very important in ensuring that gender discrimination does not happen. I now warmly welcome Justice Hima Kohli to deliver our inaugural address and the Women's Day speech.
Thank you so much. Thank you. First, let me thank the all of you, the Kerala State Unit of the Indian Law Institute, for being kind enough to extend the invitation to me to be part of this panel discussion. It is my privilege and a pleasure. Justice Anu Shivaraman, Mrs. Geeta Rameshanan, Ms. Devi, and Nini. I can't see Miss Krishna on the screen. I assume she'll be joining us soon, or she's already there.
Ma'am, I'm here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would not like to call this an inaugural speech. I would only say a little opening remark and perhaps head quickly to the panel discussion, which I look forward to as more engaging, not only for all of you, but for me too. We all know that this is the year when the UN has declared this 2021 as a choose to challenge year. And choose to challenge is quite close to the theme that has been chosen for the panel discussion, women in legal profession, triumphs and challenges. So challenges, I would say, would come first for us to celebrate the triumph. And all women have had challenges thrown at them wherever they are, in whichever field of practice they are. We are talking of legal profession, but then women have multiple roles to play. So when we are talking of legal profession, we are talking of women who have a role to play as mothers, as sisters, as wives, as sisters-in-law, as members of the family. There are a multiple lot of roles, but each one of them has to be molded into each other to give the different facets to a woman for her to evolve as a person. And that person is the one who steps out from the comfort zone to go into a practice as tough as the legal profession is. My own example is one I can share my little experiences on that front with you. I had nobody in the profession who was anywhere and anyhow related to law. It was a completely different subject for me to join. My mother comes from an academic family, so there were professors and teachers and all of that. My father comes from a family which was purely in business. I think, but for the fact that my mother, as a woman, supported me for joining the legal profession, perhaps I wouldn't have been there. So the challenge that was thrown was not by within the family, but outside of it, of joining the profession. And thereafter, the struggle to be able to make a place for oneself under the sun. When I had joined in mid-80s, there were no legal law firms of the nature that we have now, where one can join quickly, maybe get some experience, hands-on, get matters to do, and then get on with it and make a different life, either as a lawyer who's into litigation or a law firm practice. Those were the days when one had to join a senior to be able to even start looking at entering courts and get some work, because nobody would give a youngster any work. And well, I can't blame them, because their entire litigation depended on the performance of the lawyer. So as a junior in a good office where one got to learn was the first thing that one focused on. And I was blessed. I had excellent seniors, generous enough with their time and kind enough to give opportunities to me to be able to find my place under the sun, and slowly evolve into a lawyer with a little bit of practice of one's own, mainly banking on exposure through important briefs that the seniors would initially get. And as one goes along, then the practice builds surely by word of mouth, because there's no other way. So if you perform well, the client will come back with more matters, or he or she will refer some more friends to the lawyer. And that's how slowly practice is built. But I must emphasize, since we are talking of building practice, that government briefs also play a very important role in learning these skills, because those are when the volume of matters, once you come on a panel of any department, corporation, or any authority, gives one the confidence to be able to perform, deliver, and gets an opportunity to be in court more often, because private briefs in that volume can never be compared to the number of cases that a government brief would fetch. Yes, of course, it is once the race for the panels is another story, which many of us know it's not easy to get. Again, there is a lot of string pulling in some departments and authorities. Many of the women wouldn't like to do that. And there is hardly any PRO for most of us. We would rather not go that way. So it becomes more tough to be able not only to come onto a panel, but to get work from that particular authority. We've all gone through that struggle, and believe you me, it's not easy to be purely on merits to be able to get matters. It's quite tough. The confidence building steps that are important ultimately, because when you deliver, they have no choice but to come back to you with more briefs is what is satisfying. And that is what happened in my case. And that's how the journey began, and ended with my coming onto the bench in 2006. And then one saw a different perspective of what one could do as a judge in the society. Not, I would be candid, not just for women, but for any and everybody who came for justice. And the satisfaction that one gets in being able to do something worthy, to be able to make a difference to somebody's life, is the best thing that can happen. And I think one thrives on that the most satisfying part. Even as a lawyer, the satisfaction is not of getting the fee after a point. It is of being able to do a case well and manage to get the relief for your client. And I would think when I think back, I can't remember who's that client who paid me a lot of fee, but I can remember one woman whose little case in heart of Delhi relating to a landlord-tenant dispute. She was referred by a friend and she could not pay the fee. Well, she couldn't, so she couldn't. I continued with the matter. But that lady had that dignity of watching me and one day coming up and saying, we wear white saris, as you all know, our uniform is white and starched white. She was into the business of a seamstress. So she thought that she would like to starch my saris and return the courtesy. And that is what got me so emotional. And that is what I remember even now. So these are some, I think, examples all of us will recall. And with that, I'll go back to Nini and tell her to continue with the panel discussion for us to throw in more things of our experiences that we felt hands-on.
Thank you so much for that extremely enriching message, madam. It was so nice for all of us to listen to your experiences. With that, we can now go on to the next part of our discussion, which is the panel discussion, where Justice Kohli will be joined by Justice Anu Shivaraman of the Kerala High Court. Justice Shivaraman was, after being enrolled as an advocate in 1991, became an additional judge of the Kerala High Court 2015 and became a permanent judge in 2017. While being a judge of the Kerala High Court, Justice Shivaraman has been involved in multiple cases where she has opined on policies against women, such as not allowing women to go get into the Agastyakuram peak, or where the rights of maternity leave are extended to contractual employees, and where she came down upon a policy that banned women from working in liquor shops. She's also joined by Advocate Geeta Ramaseshan of the Madras High Court. She's been practicing in Chennai since 1982, where mainly in the areas of criminal law and family law. She works extensively with the legal aid system, and she represents women living with HIV/AIDS, survivors of custodial violence, victims of and survivors of sexual violence, under trial prisoners, and juvenile children. I welcome all three of you to this panel discussion, ma'ams, and where we'll basically be talking more about what Justice Kohli was speaking about, the lived experiences of women lawyers and the challenges that we face on a regular basis. So if we could start out, ma'am, as people who might have started out as young advocates, everyone hears about specific areas of law that women are not meant to do because of systemic challenges or because of backlogs in the system. And one of them being criminal law, other areas of law where women are mainly told that this is not conducive for women to be working in. So what would you think are systemic changes that could be brought about by the system to work out such issues, where it could be made more helpful for young women lawyers to work with? if we could start with Justice Shivaraman on this.
Thank you, Nini. I'm very happy to be sharing this stage with so many of my senior colleagues. Chief Justice Hima Kohli, you are our pride, ma'am. We are all cheering you from the wings. We are so happy to have you with us today. Advocate S.K. Devi, our dear Devi Chechi, I'm so happy to see you here today. I'm so happy to hear you be a part of this. Advocate Geeta Ramasheshan, good evening, ma'am. Thank you so much for being a part of this function. With regard to this issue of perception of some areas of law not being for women, I think, Nini, it is said there are these unseen bars and perceptions with regard to several branches in law. But I would like to say that these are just perceptions, matters of stereotypes that we encounter at every stage in our life. When you say that you are a lawyer, sometimes the question is, so you practice in the family courts. Yes, I've never practiced in the family court. That was not my area of interest. I was always drawn to other fields of law like service law. And I think the problem is that we as women, we tend to limit ourselves as well. Yes, you are right, systemic changes are required, and the space opening up of areas of competence is also required. But as far as I am concerned, the way I see it, I've actually looked at the women, the pioneers in this field. I've seen that there has been very little rhetoric from their side. It has been more of, quietly going about doing their thing. I think as far as we lawyers are concerned, that is how we break the stereotypes. By just going about earning the competence to do what we want to do, the field that we choose for ourselves, earn the competence to be good in the field. And I think everything else follows. Therefore, I feel that primarily it's up to us as lawyers, as women, to chart out our paths and to walk that way without actually worrying about what the world says about us, what is perceived as the correct niche for the woman. There does not have to be any niche. We have seen from experience that the pioneers in our field, these women, especially when we are speaking from Kerala, we have the first judge in the entire Commonwealth from Kerala, Justice Anna Chandi. We have so many firsts in Kerala, Justice Fatima Bibi, Justice K.K. Usha, so many women judges and pioneering lawyers. Actually, it is because of them that we are here today. Our place in the sun, we owe to them. So these women, we see that there has been very little rhetoric and a lot of hard work, going about your thing and not bothering what the profession or the world says. So systemic changes, yes, it is required, but it is the will to work our way, to break our paths, that is more required according to me.
Geeta ma'am,
yeah, actually, when Justice Kohli was sharing her experience about the lady who wanted to starch the saris because she was not in a position to, understand or pay fees, but her dignity was affected and she wanted to give you something. I was reminded of earlier experience, when I was assisting a victim of rape, and this is many, many years ago, almost 35 years ago. And of course, nothing could be done. We lost the matter, but the father was had a small patch of land, and rural areas, they would still bring him, and he brought vegetables and fruits. I just couldn't control myself. I felt that I had not got at that time, now what justice is. You grow older. I felt that there was no justice at that time, and here was this man who wanted to give me something because he thought I had given him some time. So Justice Kohli, you made me remember that part of my early days of practice. In my own case, I had joined the office of Mr. G. Ramaswamy, who later on became the Attorney General of India. And so for me, I think in that sense, it was a little bit of a privilege, because he was also related to my family. But when I enrolled in the bar, there were many senior lawyers, who would not take a woman lawyer as a junior for whatever reasons. I mean, really great doyens of the bar, so to speak, were not comfortable with having a woman junior. But today I find the position has reversed so much that many senior lawyers are wanting a woman junior. When we see the small snippets posted around the campus, we say want a woman junior, please call this number, etc. So I think that has been a very miraculous change in more ways than one. In terms of criminal law, and I guess we are talking anecdotally and from our own experiences, because it's a discussion. I really liked criminal law as a subject. I also liked family law because I was very much into the women's movement, and we were looking at, family, women's rights, etc. But for me to have got a break in criminal law, Tamil Nadu and many of the southern states, I think we had a very good, robust legal aid systems before the Legal Services Authority. And legal aid was one that actually the society gave me a lot of cases to do. Being a duty counsel in prisons, being a duty counsel in the children's court at that time before the juvenile justice system, and taking up a lot of cases, So my experiences in criminal law came because of that. And prior to that, when there were amicus curiae, I know that a lot of my more senior women lawyers would do various amicus curiae cases. When Justice Ratnavel Pandian was in the Madras High Court, he would call the women lawyers and give them these cases to do. So I think that experience stood us in good stead to understand criminal law, because obviously, more offender when we are young is not going to come and engage us. He would go to a senior male lawyer, and many male lawyer firms didn't want women. So I think I would say that even today, if women lawyers feel and want to do criminal law and there is no space for them to actually do it independently, the Legal Services Authority can play a great part, and on a very proactive measure, specify and give women lawyers litigation of this nature, because I think that would help, because especially in rural areas where it's still hard for women in the districts, women lawyers in the districts, if they don't have a supportive senior, or if the district judge is not very encouraging of the woman lawyer, it's very hard. And so I think maybe a very proactive process through the Legal Services Authority can help in this regard.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, on the point of young women lawyers, so especially on young women lawyers who are just starting out in the job, if I could pose this question to all three of you and get your opinion on it. What do you think are more practical and sustainable practices that can be conducted by maybe the local bar associations or women lawyer groups that would provide mentorship and also safe spaces for these young women lawyers who are starting out, who might not have someone connected to the profession when they're starting out? If I can have your response, Justice Kohli.
Yes, this is something which was very close to my heart, because we all went through stages when suddenly you would find that you had to go to one district court and then another, and you didn't have a fallback, because one was not into so much of established practice to have a set of juniors to run for you from one court to the other. And this kept rankling in my heart till there was an opportunity in Delhi for me with some like-minded women lawyers to start off what we call a WILL, WILL, Women in Law and Litigation. And the idea of creating that network was that we as women would be having a system of creating a network for each other to have a support, create a group where we could fall back on each other and say, if A is going to court Y, then maybe B's case can also be conducted by A as a standby, or get some support. Maybe B's clerk is available in another court. A doesn't have a clerk because she can't afford to have one. She doesn't have that kind of a practice. So B would help out with that a bit. Then we have the mentorships, as in, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock in one of our colleagues' chamber would be available for youngsters to come up and take guidance and throw questions and get answers out of them. So these were things which worked with us. And luckily, the pandemic also worked because we had a lot of webinars where things could be exchanged with each other, sitting virtually at home, from home, and questions and answers of how to go about doing virtual filing, how to handle virtual courts, what are the pros and cons and all that worked on those platforms very well. So to my mind, it's very important to have that bulwark available for women to have to be able to interact with each other, to lend your strengths and borrow somebody else's weaknesses and make them into strengths. That is what I thought. Of course, Anu and Geeta will contribute there, but that was my take on it.
Nini, as far as I am concerned, we in the Kerala High Court, we've always had an informal support system within the group of women lawyers. The Indian Federation of Women Lawyers is active in Kerala, and I am very happy to say that we have all the infrastructure required in place within the High Court for the women lawyers to actually come and interact. There is a room available for women lawyers. We have where they can have their lunch, they can get their matters typed. There is we have a library in the ladies' room, and actually this even before the new High Court building came up, this informal support system has always been there. I enrolled in the year 1991, and we did have a room at that time as well. We did not have the other infrastructure, but the informal system of mentoring, I felt, has always been there in our high courts. And the support system between women lawyers, it has been active. I'm hoping that the youngsters who are coming into the profession will take this further, so that and give opportunities to other women lawyers. If once you set up as an independent practice, and once you are able to hire juniors, yes, it is in everybody's best interest that we hire women lawyers, because they are so hardworking, they are so industrious, they are always ready to take up challenges. So let us, I'm sure that this informal group will only be strengthened more. Let us, and probably given, and with regard to the learning experience as well, I've noticed that women lawyers are actually more into acquiring their competence, and there have been classes, there have been camps going on. The associations have actually pitched in to help, especially where women lawyers are concerned. I hope this is the way to go.
Ma'am, as you said, many high courts do have this high courts and the Supreme Court have this sort of informal space where there is a space for mentorship, and you might have senior lawyers who are providing mentorship to younger lawyers. But I was wondering whether what Geeta ma'am also might think about, what systemic changes that might be required from a more formalized way of ensuring that there is this mentorship, so that there are also, I think, also women lawyers who come in also have that kind of feeling of they can't really approach people. Spaces might seem a little inaccessible to them, where they're not the most comfortable with maybe approaching seniors or speaking to them. So if there were maybe a more formalized way of where mentorship is being given by the women's groups or bar associations. So Geeta ma'am, what might you think?
I think I actually liked the example of what Justice Kohli had given about the way women had come forward, where the informal network was formalized in a particular manner. And to that, I would add, definitely senior lawyers have a much greater responsibility towards encouraging and nurturing young lawyers. And I know for a fact that there are, as you say, many young lawyers who come and who don't have a good who are not able to find a good office, who get a bit discouraged and who don't know whom to approach, etc. So one would be, the legal corporate firms actually go to every law college and especially the big schools, they just take the students from there. And maybe at certain stages, there can be a linkage with the law schools and senior lawyers in that particular city who can go and speak to the students of the kind of opportunities that they have and keep a list of lawyers. The institution can also keep a list of lawyers who are not corporate lawyers, or not corporate firms rather, but who would be willing to encourage and take young lawyers. I think, yes, there is a responsibility on the seniors in that regard. And so far, the burden has been, I think, mostly on the women lawyers themselves. I think, how do we rope in the men from the other associations is also a challenge, which probably we need to bridge in different ways.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, another topic that I wanted to touch about was the issue of representation of women itself within the judiciary. So there are multiple statistics that talk about the very low representation that women have in our judiciary now. There was a recent study in 2018 which said there was only 11% of women who are judges in high courts, and not just with judges, but also with senior advocates. In the Delhi High Court, currently there are only 8 seniors who have been designated, while against 229 men. In the Supreme Court, there are only 17 women senior advocates, while opposed to 403 men. So there is obviously an issue of representation here. But another issue also that I wanted to raise with representation is most people say that if there are more women judges on the judiciary, it does lead to more sensitivity in matters. The way that matters might be dealt with are much better if the number of women judges are higher. And especially in states like Kerala and Tamil Nadu, we have seen the number of women judges being elevated are much more higher. So as women judges on the bench, and as well as a female advocate practicing before these benches, which have now seen a higher number of women judges, what would you see? How has it changed the sensitivity of the benches themselves? Can we start with Justice Kohli?
Speaking for myself, and Anu and I are on the same page. I'm sure Geeta would add to it. I found in some cases the sensitivity of my bench partners who are males on issues related to women was surprisingly far more than I would have expected my own self or a woman colleague on the bench to have. And it gave us such a pleasant surprise. And I was so delighted. It made all that difference, because you as a woman have a take which comes naturally, right? You react to an issue in an entirely different manner and naturally vis-a-vis a male. But for a man to take that extra step out to react to the same situation with more, if not equal sensitivity, was a very, very pleasant surprise. And I would say that that goes to show that the trend is there are no cliches and there are no straitjacket formulae. That because it's a man, he'll react in a different manner or maybe a lesser manner to a situation which is sensitive and needs and demands some intervention by the court. In fact, maybe a woman would be sometimes more conservative vis-a-vis a male. And that I noticed also in appeals that came to us from family court matters, where the author was a man and the judgments were so beautifully written, so beautifully, and the sensitivity of the judge towards the situation a woman found herself in a family dispute or a dispute relating to guardianship, etc., was such a pleasant surprise. And I thought that maybe I wouldn't have reacted with such a lot of heart compared to my male colleague. And as I was thinking and looking at the decisions that have been rendered on issues related to women by various courts, most of them you will find are authored by men, and so beautifully and written with all the correct perspectives that a woman would have written it with, if I can say that. So I would think that things are changing, therefore the better. The sensitivity levels are high because perhaps the family is there. I've given that thought process to the men to react in that manner to situations where women find themselves in a difficulty. So full credit to the entire upbringing of that man, just as it is our upbringing of a child, male or female, that puts that little seed in the heart. That seed shows results when the judgments are written. That is what I think.
I agree completely with Justice Hima Kohli on this. This has been my experience as well. I feel that I'd only like to add that I feel we are underestimating our men, their sensitivity. It has been really refreshing because in several situations, it has been the male partner of the bench who has really understood the situation and been more sensitive than I have been. Kudos to them.
Yes, no doubt. Geeta.
Yeah, I also agree because, you know, when we want a larger representation of women in the judiciary, it is because we want a critical representation of women there. And 50 would be ideal, but at least the critical mass of 33%, which, you know, which is considered as a critical mass, which probably in most of us subordinate judiciary we do have. But to my mind, it does not in any way bring you to the fore that, and because we have more women, you know, it's going to be different. You know, ultimately it's a human nature. Maybe the way women would look at certain kinds of evidence would probably be slightly different, but then some men also may look at it that way. But maybe young women lawyers, when they appear before a women judge, sometimes feel more encouraged, you know, less hesitant. So that is a different issue. But whether judgments are going to be different because on the basis of your gender, I don't think so. You know, otherwise, you know, when you have even counseling or mediation, you want one man and one woman sitting there, have a, you know, to balance the discussions, you know. So that I don't think so.
So actually, so wonderful to hear all three of you say that. My question was basically emanating from a statement made by Mr. K.K. Venugopal, the Attorney General, who was basically, while talking about the disparity in representation, said that having more women judges might bring in more sensitivity to such matters. While I personally think it's a dichotomy where it's not about the gender of the judges itself. It's the whole essence of what all of us women have been saying, that there must be no difference between a female judge and a male judge, where it's just about you deciding on law itself. So it's so wonderful to hear all of you say that.
Add to that, see, a judge is not just deciding these issues that we are discussing about, right? A judge would also be deciding on a corporate law. A judge would be deciding on very complex various other questions. So we can't just compartmentalize it that way.
Yes. Another issue I wanted to raise was about attrition in the of women in the legal profession. There are various studies that have said that over the age of between the ages of 30 to 35, you see a massive rate of women lawyers who just supposedly just disappear, like they just don't work anymore, and that could be because of multiple issues of systemic benefits that are not being given to them. It could be maternity benefits are not being given to them, institutional safeguards not being provided, of again, as we said, mentorship not being there. So with specific issues that affect women, things like maternity and how maternity benefits or institutional framework is not provided to them. Like, for instance, only even in the Supreme Court, it was only in the last couple of years that a creche was made, and that has helped a lot of female lawyers come back to work. So with issues such as that, as judges and as female advocates who practice, what might you think as identify as major causes for attrition of female lawyers, as well as what might be solutions to these problems? Madam Kohli.
I think, see, the situation when we, from 80s to 90s to now this current century have changed considerably. The attrition was far more in the 80s and 90s, I think, because at that time there were lesser women. Somehow, and I think one should be, I can't help but being vocal, is that if a woman goes into the legal practice, then her chances of matrimony reduced proportionately, which is so strange.
Yes.
And it's difficult to find a match for the parents if they really want to have an arranged marriage of sorts. And many times parents, at least in those 80s and 90s decade, would think that if our daughter gets seeped into the practice, maybe, they'd never find an ideal match for her. And the sooner they would so-called, if I may use the word, settle her in, it would be better for them because they would be feeling less burdened. That was the approach. So many of the young girls, with all the enthusiasm they had and wanted to practice, would suddenly find that they had to choose between marriage and practice. And once there was that choice, then the family pressure would also build. And at the end of the day, she would have to choose between one or two. Those who married within the profession had that advantage of the husband taking over the reins while the woman was busy setting up family. Or if she was somebody who was a second generation lawyer, somebody in the family, as in a father or a brother, would help it. So there would be a running practice to come back to. She had to pick up the threads from where she'd left. But that would not happen to a standalone woman practitioner. She would have to drop everything. And by the time that critical period of 4 to 5 years to bring the child up enough for the baby to go to a school or a kindergarten too, or have a backup family support if it was not a nuclear family, well, it worked. But if it was a nuclear family, there is no backup. So the woman would have nowhere to drop the child with, and it invariably would sacrifice the career for the male to continue running the house. So those were things that were happening more, I would say, in 80s, 90s. Things started to change thereafter because of the law firm practice catching up. Women also, I found, were much more focused, happily so, were not choosing between the professions, but wanting to merge the two and continue with practice while getting married. So it was not as if you had to choose one or the other. I've noticed the age also of the decision to take marriage has moved from the early 20s to the late 20s and closer 30s, which helps. Of course, the biological clock is ticking, and the woman also knows that if she wants to marry and she has to set up a family, there are timelines attached to it. But that's not a deterrent. She's willing to go that extra mile and do that work, and still continue to have that decision, carry that decision of tying the knot and getting on with setting up a family. So I would think things have improved over what it was between, I would say, this 40 years block, 80s, 90s, and then come to 2000 and onwards. There is a difference, a marked difference to my mind.
This is Shivram.
Yes, as far as I am concerned, I feel that the singular most the challenge to women continuing with the practice of law is the issue of childcare, because it is the maternity and child rearing are the most challenging time for a woman, for a working woman is concerned, and that, according to me, is what causes this disruption in the practice most. And I've also noticed that once you take a break and the break goes on long enough, then even when you come back, you are not really taken as seriously as a lawyer who stayed in the profession. So therefore, I think it is for us to find out how this issue of child care can be addressed. Once that is addressed satisfactorily, I think that this dropping of rate will drop drastically. Therefore, it is either, like we in the Kerala High Court, we have had a creche for a very long time now. And that has been one of the options for the working woman to come back to work. And there are other options as well, the more informal options of family or, care groups and so on and so forth. So it is, once the issue of childcare is addressed properly, I think this rate can, the rate of dropping off can come down.
It's very interesting of what Justice Kohli said, because when I enrolled in 82, the first question many people said was, don't join, you can never get married. Of course, I'm totally single by choice, but that's a different issue. The point is that from 82 to today, when there is a larger number of women in other sectors who are also not taking a break, and therefore there is a different childcare system that has developed. We also have a creche in our High Court, but apart from that, where smaller children are dropped, women working in the IT, women working in other fields are also not taking a break for various reasons. One is also the fact that they want a two-income household because of EMIs and loans and other things. And so by compulsion, you find that compared to the 80s, where, as Justice Kohli said, women were discouraged from joining because or when they stopped after marriage, here you find that other systems are developing in terms of external, like external care, childcare systems, etc. So that at least that is what we see in Chennai. So that's one. It's going to go that way. People are also. It's not just lawyers. With every other sector, women, if they may want to continue in their careers and they may not even take much of a break. Now, the point is that for a senior, however empathic they are, it's hard for them to give a complete break because of the nature of the work. They might adjust to a large extent, but they might still find it very difficult because ultimately this is a single profession. It's still an individualistic profession in more ways than one. So that's a difficulty, but I don't think it will be. You're seeing, first of all, when we joined, there were not even so many women lawyers. Even in terms of dropout, it was very few, and the women senior to us were far more few, and so they were like hardly in Madras High Court. I remember only 4 or 5 senior women lawyers who had got enrolled in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
After that, slowly now the number has really increased. So therefore, I think definitely when this increases, mechanisms will also come for support systems to develop.
Ma'am, with regard to maternity break, as Justice Shibraman, there's actually a study that was conducted in 2019 in lawyers in Delhi, which said about 75% of women lawyers in law firms were affected by after taking a maternity break. They didn't get promotions that they deserved, or just did not. And especially in litigation, about 53% of women who said that they were impacted. And especially in litigation, where it's such a job connected to networking and being seen in court, taking that break of a year or two on a maternity break might really affect these women. But do you think that the nature of the profession itself will hamper systemic changes that might help these women? Justice Shibraman or Justice Kohli?
Actually, again, Nini, yes, it is a tough profession. It is a profession where you have to rely very much on networking, on being seen in courts. All that is true. But then I think it is also a matter of perceptions as well. When a woman takes a break, like a woman government servant, she gets a maternity break. There is no stigma attached to her coming back and joining where she left off. And I dare say that the colleagues are helpful in as much as they try to put her back in a comfortable situation. So here is a matter where this also, I think, in this profession as well, it will be a matter of acceptance of this break as a necessary a situation where she's not taking a break because she's not serious about her profession. Just because she's forced to, because it is a situation where the families, especially in Kerala, we are going from the joint family system to the nuclear family with such speed that you cannot bank on the larger families to take care of the children. You have to, like I said, the childcare aspect is so crucial. So I think it is only a matter of perception, and it will come. It is just that we have to, take these steps and see that these changes are brought about in people's perceptions as well.
If I can digress a bit and link it with Nini, the COVID situation of the past 1 year, I thought that one of the positives and carryaways of the COVID was the virtual courts, which helped women a lot. To my mind, women who did not have an office, a chamber, conveyance to travel, had that benefit of having a mobile phone to connect with the courts from their own comfort of homes and be able to continue their practice in whichever way they could with the limited resources they had was a wonderful experience. They had that opportunity just to link up and wherever they were, adjust their timings within the home, adjust with the children or the parents or the in-laws or whoever was in the family, and still be able to spend that little time being able to log into a hearing and log out. Women also had that advantage for online mediation in this time, which many of the courts had introduced to a large extent. I can give the example of Delhi. Delhi had a full-blown, Samadhan had set up the rules of online mediation. Many other state high courts had. And it was buzzing. So where we started with maybe 2 licenses or 3 of Cisco to get the online mediation going, we ended up with 5. And we had mediations going till late night because they were not necessary that they would remain institutionally within the high court to be able to mediate. They could adjust the timings with the parties to be able to connect and to continue giving results. So that phase of the COVID pandemic did give this advantage to women to be able to do a lot of things together while not moving out from the comfort of their homes. To that extent, I thought that there was this plus that one can carry with one. And maybe that advantage of virtual courts could be seen quite a bit for women practitioners at this duration.
What will the opinion of both of you, Justice Shivaraman and Geeta ma'am, also be on how during the pandemic virtual courts have helped women? And might it be actually specific things that Justice Kohli had mentioned about you being able to manage things in your day because you had the advantage of a virtual court? Would that be something that our systems can also pick up on creating that sort of a leeway for, I wouldn't call it leeway, but for more of like a space to work women into the system? And these could be taken as hints for them to understand that these are the times that are required of a woman and of other duties that you might have. And if that to be brought into how the system looks at our time as well.
I'd like to, I'm waiting to hear Advocate Geeta Ramasheshan on this, but I'd only like to say that we are all women, basically all working women. We are all multitaskers. And we are so accustomed to doing 12 things at a time that this aspect of having this comfort of working from home has actually made a difference, and it has empowered young women, especially women with young families, to be a part of the mainstream in as much as they don't have to leave the comfort of their homes at all. Yes, please, Advocate Geeta, can we hear you on that?
Yes, definitely. Because, I mean, even while working from home, we can do so many other things, like normal circumstance itself, sitting in front of the laptop, we can actually do drafting and other things, right? So it has, when both of you had indicated that to me, yes, this would definitely help women a lot more maybe than the men. But I want to add one more aspect to what you said. See, the firms, I would say, are very different from single individual litigating lawyers. Firms are like a structured office. So naturally, they have things like promotion and all that, which an individual senior lawyer would not have. So I think it's very hard to look at firms and look at the, litigation experience of lawyers. So if you didn't look at that, this is actually one of the few professions where you can leave and then come back, and join at any age.
That's right.
And that is a great advantage of this profession, and not in terms of looking at whether our clientele will go, etc. But you can definitely come back at any age, and there are people who would use the skills of a person, of lawyers. If going back to the beginning of both the learned justices said, if you develop that skill and if you are competent.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, just on one last point, of as a young female lawyer, something that we hear a lot happening around is how there is a lack of accountability, even when there are instances in an informal setting, as litigation is. A lack of accountability when there are cases of sexual harassment that may come up. And it's also relevant in our time where sexual harassment at the workplace is a very relevant issue as of now. So especially in cases of where of litigation, where there might be young lawyers who might be having some issues. As said earlier, there aren't really formal spaces where concerns can be voiced. And also quite troubling when there were cases of, law interns alleging there was sexual harassment by judges. A knee-jerk reaction was to say, okay, let's not have women in the system. Let's not have these female interns. But other than knee-jerk reactions such as that, what would a good way where young women lawyers might feel safe enough to practice and to know that there is accountability within the system? We can start with Geeta ma'am, who might know about young women lawyers practicing.
I think that is a knee-jerk reaction. There is nothing to be said about, and definitely yes, high courts have to bring in a systemic sexual harassment committee, etc. But that's a different. That is a structural issue that has to be dealt with in every high court by all of us. But when you are actually looking at young interns need not get disillusioned, and we know for a fact that young interns are still joining senior judges and they are doing very excellent work. Almost all the judges have young interns working for them and they are doing excellent work. So again, I go back to what I said in the beginning. When people at one stage were not wanting women lawyers to a stage where everybody wants women lawyers because you feel that they are in some levels more hardworking and competent and and whatever various other issues to be done. The sexual harassment is a problem. It is there in the profession. We cannot deny it. It is there among lawyers. It is there. I mean, there can be no denial of the fact that that is a problem. And I don't think anybody wants to deny that. But then, of course, you will have a little bit of a tension coming in where, you think that complete removing the woman from that process would probably be helping this entire issue. But I don't think, maybe as you say, since it is a knee-jerk reaction, I don't see that happening in a larger way, in any way, or in any manner for them.
And what I meant to ask is, other than knee-jerk reactions such as those, what are proper systems that can be put in place where women will feel safe to practice and to know that they have a place to go to in case of a complaint? Because we saw that even with the Supreme Court, even after the Vishaka guidelines having to set up a sexual harassment committee in '97, it was only in 2013 that even the Supreme Court set up this committee. So, Justice Shivaraman, what would you say could be more systemic protections for young female lawyers practicing?
Nidhi, post Vishaka and post the statute, I feel it is not the lack of the formal systems. Formal systems and checks are in place as of now, at least as of now. But how many complaints do we have? How many real complaints do we have? There are two issues here. When there is a case of harassment, a genuine case of harassment, there is this reluctance on the part of the intern or the person who's facing it to make a complaint because of various factors. And there is also the other issue of complaints being made with other motives as well. Complaints which are not not completely genuine, being raised for other reasons as well. These are the twin aspects that we have to look at. As far as the first is concerned, the reluctance, it is not because there is no system in place. Even with the system in place, how confident is the woman to approach the system, and how competent is the system to actually deal with the situation? That is where we need to, I think this has to be, this is an area where we have to make the woman feel confident enough to come to us and to see that we are competent to solve the issue. That I think we need much more discussions on this, how to actually go about doing this, and see that a woman who raises a genuine complaint feels protected in the system. This requires much more work. It is, I don't have any glib suggestion to make. This definitely requires something more from our part.
Nini, if I can give a few examples, as a chairperson of the Sexual Harassment Committee of Delhi High Court, where we handled several complaints. The lawyers, many of us don't know that for a complaint by a lawyer against a lawyer, it is the State Bar Council that has a role to play. See, half the problem is women don't know where to go. So if it is a subordinate judiciary or the staff of the court, take for example, a state high court, it is that sexual harassment committee constituted for the high court that will work. If it is lawyer versus a clerk or lawyer versus a lawyer, it would go to a different forum. And then there is a first forum, then there is an appellate forum, and then finally it goes to the Bar Council of India. And those levels were not, in fact, they were not even manned in many states. The High Court, the bar councils of the High Court had not set up those committees, unfortunately, which was a very strange thing, which we tried to set into place. But as far as protection goes, I can give you a random example, of course, of a case where a staff of our court had a grievance. Delhi High Court had a grievance and had the guts, thought about it and had the guts to make a complaint. As Anu said, half the time, one hates to come in the limelight, and it is always considered to be for the wrong reasons, if I may use that word. So whenever somebody has the courage to come to the committee and complain, it is a duty of the committee to make sure that she's comfortable enough to continue with the complaint and has the backing of knowing that something can go, if it goes wrong, the committee is there. So one of the things we did was, because the gentleman was found to be stalking those ladies, not one but two, was to ensure that they were fearful of traveling from the court premises to the bus stop where they would get the bus to go home. We had directed as a committee that a vehicle be arranged by the court to pick them up and drop them in the evening, because that was the time that there were dark patches, it was in the night or late evening that they were wary, so that they would be dropped and they would go to the station, and once they would leave, the car would come back. They were being picked up and dropped. The other thing we did was that we made sure that there were directions, interim orders issued that the man would not come within the radius of 100 meters for in the workplace, wherever the women were, because that was a deterrent. And we made sure that it was implemented and any complaint received by them was acted upon. So some things the message should go that the committee is active and will not take any such bullying by the man once the woman has made a complaint. That gave them the confidence to stick to their version and were willing to take it further for trial. I have also had the occasion to have a full-blown trial in the case of a subordinate judicial officer vis-a-vis a staff member of his who made a complaint, and we ultimately indicted him. But how difficult it was to gather evidence, to be able to sift through the evidence and be able to connect the threads is another story. But the fact that the woman stuck to her story and she deposed, and we had all the evidence led and ultimately indicted him, was something which was an experience which I would say hands-on is different from any trial that one can do for a case like this. So it's very important for the committee to be strong and to be able to know where the problem is and how to deal with that by passing interim orders and keeping a control through that entire process of the complaint till it attains finality.
No, actually, Nini, lawyer to lawyer is probably far more difficult today, because most lawyers, if they operate from their homes, the home is actually the workspace.
Right.
Sometimes there is a more friendly relationship that develops with the family if it is your home. And bar council, I don't want to say anything about the whole structure. All of us are aware how that system works. So then sometimes the only option left to the young woman lawyer is to go to the police, which if she does, sometimes there may be a lawyers group that would prevent her from doing so, or sometimes she not forget the fact that she is afraid, then she will become unpopular with no other office wanting to take her on as a
That's right.
as a junior. So a great vested interest structure is very much there. Probably that now that the judiciary and the judges processes have brought in a kind of processes, we need to actually go through with reference, because it's all self-employed. No, ultimately the profession is very difficult to regulate in terms of a structure.
Yes, ma'am. What you said absolutely on providing more power to the woman to actually report the violence or the harassment is what's even more difficult. Like we've seen multiple cases in Delhi where women who reported such cases were attacked on court premises, and there was no accountability after that as well. I was just wondering whether there were any concluding remarks from any of the three of you on this International Women's Day, whether there was anything specific you wanted to say to women lawyers on specific challenges faced by them.
I can only say that when we talk of choose to challenge status quo, I hope to live the day when there is an International Men's Day, celebrated with the same gusto as we are doing an International Women's Day. And that would validate everything that we are all discussing.
As far as I'm concerned, I'd like to say when we are talking about women in the legal profession, I think we are forgetting a section of women in the profession. That is women in the judiciary, the district courts, and the magistracy in the and of course the civil courts. These women have been a very great formative factor as far as the legal profession is concerned. Their numbers have increased exponentially. Women in the judiciary are now, I think, almost reaching a situation of being in the majority. So therefore, their good work and the kind of dedication they've shown to their work is something we ought not to forget when we are talking about women in the legal profession. And with regard to the message to women lawyers, I would only say that please don't forget the pioneers, and please don't forget that in some respects you are pioneers as well. So the only thing standing in the way of you and complete success is the limitations you put on yourself. Let us, on that note, let us hope that tomorrow will be yours, and let us, like Justice Hema said, let us wait to see these young women in the majority in the profession. Thank you.
I just want to say that, you know, they're the pioneers of the profession, starting from Justice Anna Chandy in Kerala to in all our high courts. We hardly have any written materials on them. And maybe the Indian Law Institute can take up this and bring out publications relating to the experiences of all the senior women lawyers about whom very little is known, though so much is known about the men. To the young lawyers, I want to say that it is a very adventurous profession. It is exhilarating, frustrating, but never boring. So always step into it, take the challenge, and take the connectivity with your seniors who are there in large numbers, and enter the profession bravely.
Thank you, ma'am. This is a very engaging and great panel discussion. I would like to thank all three of you for being a part of this panel discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nini.
Thank you.
I'd now like to ask Ms. Krishna to deliver the concluding remarks for the program.
I'll start from where Nini left. I would say that it was equally engaging, inspiring, and enlightening to listen to our panelists. I think the topic that we have discussed today, women in legal profession, triumphs and challenges, that is a topic which ought to have been discussed much earlier, and it was a need of the hour that there is a constructive discussion on this topic. And finally, at least on this day, we were able to listen to our panelists talk about in great length the challenges that women in this profession face and how to overcome and how to triumph. And I wouldn't be exaggerating when I say that we had a very befitting, distinguished set of panelists to address on this topic, who themselves have overcome all these daunting challenges and have triumphed in their profession. They have set a mark for themselves. They've set themselves as role models worthy of emulation for all the aspiring young lady lawyers here. I would say that the major takeaway from this panel discussion would be that howsoever tough is the road ahead, with tenacity and true grit, it is possible for every woman to succeed in this profession. I would say that that is the message the three panelists have given to us. As part of my concluding address, I'm asked to propose a vote of thanks also. Let me begin by thanking Honorable Ms. Justice Hima Kohli, her thought-provoking address, wherein she has brought out many personal anecdotes to drive home the point that women in this profession will have to work harder, will have to strive harder, but at the end of the day, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. And with dedicated, perseverant hard work, we all can make a difference in this profession. Ma'am, on behalf of one and all present here, may I extend my heartfelt gratitude for those words of wisdom. Honorable Mrs. Justice Anu Shivaraman, Anu ma'am addressed the stereotypes that women has to face when they are in this profession. She urged us to earn the competence to hold our heads high and spread across. Ma'am, your words were inspiring, and I'm pretty sure that all the young lawyers, young lady lawyers here, will set you as a role model and will strive harder to make a mark for ourselves in this profession. Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of one and all, I extend our hearty gratitude to Anu, ma'am. And Ms. Geeta Ramasheshan, ma'am, your words were equally inspiring and enlightening. Your experience as a lawyer, I'm pretty sure that most of the lawyers here could connect with your experiences. And we felt inspired. We were very touched when you said that it is a highly individualistic profession, where the battle is essentially for the woman to fight alone, but with a strong support system from family and professional support from the members of the judiciary, it is possible for every woman to rise up. Ma'am, on behalf of one and all, let me extend my deep appreciation and gratitude for that wonderful address. And I also thank Advocate S.K. Devi ma'am for her very informative introductory address, and a very special thanks to Nini. Nini has posed the question that every young lady lawyer wanted to ask. These were the questions that we were searching the answers for. You were a gracious moderator. Your questions were pertinent. Thank you, Nini, for being the best moderator that we could ask for. I also take this opportunity to place on record my profound gratitude to Honorable Chief Justice of Kerala, Honorable Mr. Justice S. Manikumar, President, Indian Law Institute, Honorable Mr. Justice Alexander Thomas, Honorable Mr. Justice Jayashankaran Nambia, Honorable Mr. Justice P.B. Suresh Kumar, members of the Executive Council of Indian Law Institute. I also thank all the Honorable Judges of High Court of Kerala, High Court of Telangana, retired judges, members of District Judiciary, senior advocates, and all the other distinguished members of the legal fraternity for their gracious presence. I also place on record my deep appreciation and gratitude to the members of the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers for their kind support and guidance in organizing this program today. It is a collective enthusiasm and hard work of the members of the Indian Law Institute family, with the able guidance of Advocate G. Unnikrishnan sir and Dr. K.P. Pradeep sir and Advocate V.M. Shamkumar sir, that reflect on the success of this program. I express my heartfelt appreciation and gratitude to each one of them on this occasion. I also thank all the lawyer friends, law students, and everyone who have taken time to participate in this program. As this ceremony is coming to a close, I remember the words of Honorable Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was one of the most powerful feminist voices to have come from judiciary. She stated that the gender line or the gender divide, whatever that exists in judiciary, it's not always a pedestal for the woman. Rather, it works as a cage for the woman. And that her biggest dream is to see all the benches of judiciary occupied by women. When Justice Hima Kohli madam said about celebrating an International Men's Day, it was that dream that came to my mind. On a positive note, wishing and hoping for better and brighter days ahead, I think it's time for us to finally call this program to a close. Once again, I thank every one of you. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much. Thank you.